ठीक है. Have a look at this. This is a typical Section A question which has 25 marks allocated for evaluate and prioritize the significant audit risk to be considered in the group audit. ठीक है. Using profit before income taxes as your benchmark, you need to determine and apply an appropriate materiality threshold in your briefing notes. You are not required to consider audit risk separately, audit risk relating to foreign exchange transactions and balances, as this will be discussed separately. Design the principal audit procedures to be performed on segment information and matters to be considered in deciding whether Pegasus and company should accept the engagement to provide advice on group's social and environmental information. ठीक है. ये है आपका बेस डेटा. यू हैव द बैकग्राउंड इन्फो जिसमें से आपको बिजनेस रिस्क वगैरह मिल सकता है, बट हियर दिस इज जस्ट अबाउट ग्रुप ऑपरेशंस. ठीक है. देन यू हैव सम फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन ऑल्सो गिवन टू यू. What all information is there? You have group revenue, operating profit, PBIT, total assets, operating licenses, PPE. Note 1. Revenue includes passenger ticket sales, which accounts for approximately 85% of the revenue. When customers book a cruise, they are required to pay a refundable 20% deposit, which is initially recognized as a contract liability. The balance of 80% is paid at least 6 weeks before the cruise commences, and at that point, it is also recognized as a contract liability. The full amount of ticket price is transferred to revenue when the cruise starts, irrespective of the duration. ठीक है. The remaining 15% of revenue is derived from on-board sales of food, drinks, entertainment, and other items to passengers. Management monitor this revenue stream closely as it achieves a high GP margin, and staff are encouraged to maximize these sales. ठीक है. फिर पीपीई का ब्रेकअप है, रेवेन्यू पर ऑपरेटिंग सेगमेंट का ब्रेकअप है. ठीक है. Then audit team meeting notes, cyber security attacks, social and environmental information. So you have gone through the question. यहाँ पे the contents of the question are not as important for me as is the analysis they have done. ठीक है. Let me take you to that part. Up in every subject now, if you type out reading the mind of the AAA marker, it gives you an idea of what exactly is the examiner thinking when he is evaluating your answer. ठीक है. We'll be looking at what a great answer looks like and what a poor answer looks like. ठीक है. अब ये है आपका requirement part. Questions are set at planning stage, you know. They are asking you to evaluate and prioritize significant audit risk, recommend some appropriate audit procedures, and evaluate ethical and professional issues. By prioritize, the examining team will be looking for you to demonstrate your ability to identify the important risk in this scenario and then, of course, put it across in a particular order. Stronger candidates are those who demonstrate good technical knowledge and, of course, fetching the professional marks also. Now, first of all, have a look at this. This is a good candidate. See, ये थोड़ा आपको ना, you'll have to strain your eyes a little ना. Norma Star, Audit Engagement Partner. Point 1. किस चीज का मार्क मिला? 1 mark awarded for communication. Style, language, and clarity, presentation and materiality, and relevant calculations are easy to follow and understand. मतलब present it in a manner which makes it easier for the examiner to read. Now, what all did you put together here? Name of the person to whom it is addressed, from audit manager, subject, audit planning for the Crux group, date. ठीक है. Point number 2, 1 mark awarded for effectiveness and clarity. अब effectiveness and clarity has to be throughout the answer, just heading many. So you will give the heading as briefing notes, and the first paragraph will basically be a summary of all the requirements. So these briefing notes have been prepared to help in the planning of the audit of the client so and so. Identify the year, identify the client name. ठीक है. एंड अगर क्वेश्चन में 3 पार्ट्स है या 4 पार्ट्स है तो राइट डाउन. इन द फर्स्ट पार्ट आई इवेल्युएटेड द ऑडिट रिस्क टू बी कंसिडर्ड इन प्लानिंग द ग्रुप ऑडिट. Secondly, the notes contain principal audit procedures to be performed on segmental information. Next part evaluates the matters to be considered in deciding whether Pegasus and company should accept the engagement to provide advice on the group's social and environmental information. So what you have done is, let me take you here. ये क्या था रिक्वायरमेंट में? इफ यू लुक एट द पार्टनर्स ईमेल में जो तीन चीज लिखा था, वही हमने वहां पे लिखा इन द फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ, दैट वी हैव इवैल्यूएटेड एंड प्रायोरिटाइज द सिग्निफिकेंट ऑडिट रिस्क, देन वी हैव डिजाइन द प्रोसीजर्स, एंड लास्ट ऑफ ऑल वी हैव evaluated the matters to be considered in deciding whether the engagement should be accepted or not. ठीक है. So first paragraph is just a summary of all the requirements. ठीक है. Now, 1 mark is awarded for communication for the briefing notes format and structure, including use of headings throughout the response. So, wherever you are giving these headings, audit risk के अंदर materiality, then description of the risk, ये सबको मिला के there is 1 mark that is allocated, and the opening paragraph of briefing notes is also important. ठीक है. अब आओ ऑडिट रिस्क में. सी, materiality has to be calculated and explained for risk of material misstatement या फिर for audit risk. If there is business risk तो आपको materiality का बात नहीं करना है. Materiality is based on profit before tax, calculated as follows. 1 mark for communication. Candidate has adhered to the specific request made by the audit engagement partner, basing materiality on PBT. So, there are people जिनको ज्यादा होशियार बनना है ना, so they will not read the question and they will base their materiality on total assets or on revenue. The question specifically told you कि your materiality should be on PBT, and then you write a line. ठीक है. Don't just calculate materiality. First of all, state that materiality is based on PBT of the group. 1 mark मिला. Here there was a specific request, you followed that request. Then you do the calculation. Don't just do your calculation in the rough note and 4.05 to 8.1 and materiality level is 4.05, for example. Don't do that. Write down 5 to 10% of PBT is what? 2 marks awarded for correct ratio and calculation of upper and lower range for materiality. 2 technical marks only for this calc. एक तो ये threshold select करना, that for PBT it is 5 to 10%, for revenue it is 0.5 to 1, for assets it is जो भी आपके percentage decided है, which is why please learn it. ISA 315 identifying, उसमें जो हमारा assessing the पूरा materiality वाला जो discussion हुआ था, वहां पे प्लीज रिमेंबर द थ्रेशोल्ड्स ऑल्सो, बिकॉज यू कैन सी दैट फॉर राइटिंग 5 to 10% 1 mark, फॉर कैलकुलेटिंग 4.05 to 8.1 million 1 mark. Then justification, as this is a new client and the detection risk has increased due to our lack of understanding of the particular business and the brought forward losses, the lower range of 4.05 is chosen as a suitable materiality level. Justification 1. So, just in materiality, you got 4 marks. How? First of all, stating that materiality is based on PBT. Then, giving the threshold, calculating the threshold, justifying materiality. 4 marks मिल गए. Are these very difficult to score? No. मुझे पेपर में क्या लिखना है समझ में नहीं आ रहा है is a statement that I should not hear after today. Because we are literally reading what the examiner wants you to write in the paper. Correct? Now, new client and the first year of audit, risk of detection. The Crux group is a new client. We have to understand the entity, its environment, its controls. We do not have experience with this client and we may not recognize all the risk of material misstatement. We did not audit the opening balances. The client is listed, which means that the risk if wrong opinion is issued is higher. 1 mark awarded for explaining the issues for a new client and why this is the case. See, you don't have to just state the risk, you have to explain why having a new client increases the level of audit risk. And the candidate has started to explain this. However, they have not explained why the risk would be greater, such as increased laws and regulations and higher number of stakeholders. So, if it is a new audit client, the risk is more. But what if the wrong audit opinion is given? Matlab, the financial statements have a material misstatement, but you give a statement saying that there is no material misstatement. Correct? Up, revenue recognition is the next risk. Applicable standard of reporting, which describes how revenue should be recognized, recognizes five steps in revenue recognition. One of the most common things is to find out of the revenue should be to find out if the revenue should be recognized over time or at a point in time. ये क्या है? 2 marks awarded for identification of correct financial reporting treatment and implications on the financial statement. Candidate then goes in to explain that this is a material balance and increased risk due to subjectivity in applying the standard. So, wherever possible, always quantify the amount in discussion. 3 करोड़ 6 करोड़ 5 करोड़ जो भी है quantify that. Why do you quantify that? Because doing so will give you a complete picture कि ये is this amount over and above the materiality threshold, तो ही जाके वो item significant बनेगा, right? So mention that this item is material. अब then see, this was the generic accounting treatment under IFRS 15. Look at the next para. Cruises typically last for 2 weeks, though some last for up to 6 weeks. फुकटचन लोगों का काम होगा, काम कुछ है नहीं, 6 6 वीक्स क्रूज पे जा रहे. This could be understood that the customer gets the service over time, not at a point in time, simultaneously when the group is performing its service. Note 1 says that the full amount of ticket price is transferred to revenue when cruise starts, irrespective of duration. As revenue is a is a material balance both by nature and by quantity, plus it is an area of management judgment and application of standards. This is a material balance to the audit engagement. You have stated the reason why this particular item is material, not just by amount, but also by nature. What is the risk? There is a risk that revenue is overstated and deferred revenue is understated. 10. 1 mark awarded for professional skepticism. The candidate has effectively challenged the information supplied and techniques carried out to support key facts. Now, when we read the information, we did realize कि यार, if the cruise lasts for some weeks, 6 week का अगर cruise है, and what they are doing is they are recognizing the revenue on the day the cruise starts. That is naturally incorrect. So you did not accept, as an auditor, you did not accept the statement made by the management. You questioned it, which is why you got the mark for skepticism. ठीक है. 1 mark for skepticism and judgment, materiality being consistently applied throughout. ठीक है. There are other references throughout, and it is the consistent usage throughout the candidate script that is awarded the mark here. What they are saying is materiality being consistently applied, मतलब सारे calculations में और in every risk area you are justifying why this item is material. आप explain कर रहे हो कि ये material by nature है, amount है, जो भी है. 12 number, 1 mark awarded for implication of risk on the financial statements. Implication of risk means understate overstate के लिए 1 full mark. अकाउंटिंग ट्रीटमेंट एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए, आइडियल ट्रीटमेंट बताने के लिए 2 marks. देन एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ द रिस्क, व्हाट दे आर डूइंग रॉन्ग, क्वेश्चनिंग देयर अप्रोच 1 mark. वहां पे आपको प्रोफेशनल स्किल का 1 mark है. एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स क्वेश्चनिंग द जजमेंट, दैट इज ऑल्सो अनदर मार्क. ठीक है. अब कॉस्ट ऑफ अपग्रेडिंग एंड मेंटेनेंस ऑफ द सनसीकर क्रूजरशिप. ठीक है. एक बार रीड दिस आंसर. मैं यहीं बैठा. ठीक है. Now see where all are you getting and losing marks. ठीक है. Group will spend $75 million on upgrading and maintenance of Sunseeker ship. Amount is material to financials. Applicable financial standards of reporting require that cost of maintenance of property, plant, and equipment should be expensed to profit and loss, while the upgrading of ships through installation of new entertainment facilities, including cinemas and gyms, should be capitalized and increase the value. Point 13 में किसको मार्क दिया? 1 mark awarded for correct explanation of the correct accounting treatment. You have to describe what is the correct accounting treatment. ठीक है. Then there is a risk that expenditure of 75 million, which is material, was wrongly categorized, maintenance versus upgrading, and as a result, the PPE could be overstated and profit overstated, or if some costs which should be capitalized were expensed of, PPE may be understated and profits understated. So, what did you get marks for? Point number 16, 1 mark awarded for explaining the implication of the risk on financials. Now, do you realize why writing the understatement overstatement is so important? Because every time you write that understatement overstatement, you are gaining 1 mark. Then, explanation of the correct accounting treatment is getting you 1 mark. And then other description. But whenever you're talking about audit risk, risk of material misstatement, make sure that you write about this part कि क्या ओवरस्टेट अंडरस्टेट हुआ है. एंड उसके बाद व्हाट इज द करेक्ट, उसके बाद नहीं, उसके पहले व्हाट इज द करेक्ट अकाउंटिंग ट्रीटमेंट. कैपेक्स ऑफ न्यू एक्सप्लोरर क्रूज शिप्स, वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस एंड बोरोइंग कॉस्ट. ठीक है. इट्स अ बिग एडजस्टमेंट, सॉरी बिग एक्सप्लेनेशन. एक बार देखो इसको, रीड पूरा फोर्थ. यस नेत्रा, टेल मी.
Sir, for explaining correct accounting treatment, do we have to mention the standard name and number?
नो, बट आई एम श्योर एट दिस पॉइंट यू नो व्हाट द स्टैंडर्ड नेम्स एंड नंबर्स आर ना. लिखो तो बहुत अच्छा, बट यू डोंट गेट एनी एक्स्ट्रा मार्क्स फॉर डूइंग दैट. पढ़ लिया. Now, during this year, two ships with a total cost of 110 million will come into use. The value of these new two ships is material to the financials. The interest cost of the loan which was taken to finance the purchase of the current year amounts to 6.6 million, and it is also material to the financial statements. 17th, half mark awarded for calculation of interest. Interest cost taken to finance the purchase for current year is 6.6 million. Quantification number दिया नहीं था question में, you calculated that, half a mark. 18 point is candidate is showing regular application of materiality throughout the response. So the व्हाट दे आर गिविंग यू 1 मार्क थ्रू आउट, पूरा पेपर मिला के 1 मार्क कहाँ पे है? ऑन constant reference to materiality. Basically what you are supposed to do is, say your interest cost here is 6 million, your materiality level is 3 million. You should quantify the amount and state that it is above the materiality threshold. हर जगह पे यही करो, quantify the amount, state it is above materiality threshold, quantify the amount, state it is above materiality threshold. ठीक है? New assets should be recognized in PPE, old ships will be replaced and de-recognized. Applicable financial standards of reporting require that cost of borrowing, in this case the interest on loan, should be capitalized and added to the value of the constructed assets from the moment the decision about the purchase has been taken and first expenditure was made till till the moment the asset is ready for use. 19 is 1 mark awarded for explanation of correct financial reporting treatment which should be adopted in response to the identified risk. सो अकाउंटिंग ट्रीटमेंट डिस्क्राइब करने को 1 मार्क एवरी क्वेश्चन हैज, करेक्ट?
हम्म।
अगेन उसका, सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आइडेंटिफिकेशन रिस्क लिखो. सी यू आर गिविंग प्रॉपर हेडिंग एवरीवेयर, हेडिंग दो. उसके बाद स्टार्ट विद द अमाउंट की यार व्हाट इज द अमाउंट इन्वॉल्व यार, 110 million, 6 million, 7 million, 8 million. डिस्क्राइब दैट, say that it is material, then suggest the correct accounting treatment, and most important of all, you have to write about what is overstated, understated. पॉइंट 23 देखो क्या है. पॉइंट 23 implication of the error, है ना? पॉइंट 22 is also implication of the error. पॉइंट 21 awarded for identification of risk regarding interest. Risk that interest of the loan was expensed to P&L rather than added to the value of the ship. So you're talking about CIS 23 talks about capitalization of borrowing cost. Up, what is the risk? The risk is that it is expensed of when in fact it should have been capitalized. उस पे they are giving you another half a mark. अब यूजफुल लाइफ ऑफ जिम इक्विपमेंट देखो, 24-25, एक बार पढ़ो तो. If different parts of tangible assets have different useful life, they should be depreciated using their individual useful life. Equipment in the gym should be replaced every 3 years, so this part of PPE should be depreciated over 3 years, not like the whole ship. There is a risk that wrong period for depreciation was used, the same as for a ship, and then assets will be overstated and profits will be overstated. Implication of the risk, and ये देखो ये componentization पे है ना? डज SBR एवर टेस्ट यू ऑन PPE? मैंने तो नहीं देखा, बट ट्रिपल ए में है ना, देखो. 1 mark awarded for explaining the correct financial reporting treatment, explaining it in the context of the scenario, saying that the gym equipment should be depreciated at a different rate as compared to the ship. That is what componentization is, right? पूरा असेट और उसके, सो आई गिव यू द एग्जांपल ऑफ एरोप्लेन इन SBR, है ना, द एरोप्लेन, उसके कंपोनेंट पार्ट्स. हियर 1 मार्क इज अवॉर्डेड फॉर इम्प्लीकेशन ऑफ द रिस्क ऑन फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स. वो तो एक स्टैंडर्ड फीचर हो गया. अब ये पढ़ो, पॉसिबल नॉन अडियरेंस टू लॉज एंड रेगुलेशंस. The group suffered a cybersecurity attack in which the personal information of 1,400 customers, including their credit cards, was stolen. There is a risk that the group breached the regulation which entered into force recently. There is a risk that the group will have to pay penalties for this breach, and that not all disclosures relating to this event will be contained in the required disclosure. It is possible that management will want to hide this event, or even if this will be disclosed, the provision for legal claims may be understated. Another risk is that this breach may lead to significant decrease of revenue as the potential customers may be afraid of. यार ये यूके के किसी बंदे ने लिखा है. अनप्रॉपर वर्ड सुना है? इंडिया में कितना भी अनपढ़ आदमी हो, अनप्रॉपर. देखो, बेवकूफ. improper use of their personal data. If the attack happens once again, ऐसे लग रहा है यार पता नहीं किसने लिखा है. They may not be sure about that the issue is resolved. This may this may cause to risk of going concern. ये सच में किसी ने ड्रंक हालत में लिखा है ये. And there is a risk that proper disclosures relating to uncertainties relating to going concern are not made. अब बट हम 26, 27, 28 देखेंगे. 1 mark for identification and explanation of risk regarding potential non-disclosure. Half mark awarded for stating that provisions may be understated. For a full mark, the candidate should explain that expenses will be understated. And 1 mark awarded for commercial acumen. The candidate has considered wider implications on stakeholders of the cyber attack. This has been appropriate. There has been appropriate recognition of the wider implications on the engagement, the audit firm, and the company. See, यहाँ पे there were no specific amounts involved, but the question did speak about a cyber attack and how data is compromised and how it could lead to many, many such, legal cases in the future. Then related party wala disclosure. The group entered transactions with Vela shipbuilders, which in the related party as the chairman of the group is also chairman of Vela shipbuilders. Related party transaction is material by nature and should be disclosed in notes. The nature of transaction should be disclosed value and balance. Risk that Vela shipbuilders was not disclosed as a related party as the group does not own the shares of the company and the directors may not be aware that transactions with this entity should be treated as related party transactions. ठीक है. 1 mark for identifying the reasons for what this is a related party transaction. They have a common director, है ना. So explaining why they are related parties, उसके लिए 1 mark. Then 1 mark awarded for identification of correct accounting treatment and materiality by nature. Half mark. Full credit would be obtained for explaining how this should be disclosed or what the key elements would need to be disclosed in this case. Point 30, 31 में क्या किया है? The person described what IAS 24 tells you. He did not correlate that with facts of the case. So correlation with facts of the case will fetch you full credit. And 1 mark for identification and explanation of risk. ठीक है. ओके. अब ये देखो, लाइसेंसेस ऑफ द पायोनियर क्रूज. Licenses amount to 56 million. This is material to financials. Last week, the governments of several countries which form a major part of Pioneer Cruise itineraries withdrew their operating license with immediate effect. The, then the licenses are withdrawn. They should be de-recognized from intangibles. The value of the license decreased by only 1 million, which suggests that the licenses were not de-recognized. There is a risk that licenses are overstated and the profits are also overstated. 1 mark awarded, candidate gains a technical mark for explaining what the accounting treatment should be. 1 mark for analysis and evaluation, has taken the information in the scenario, used that to support the risk and draw conclusion. This demonstrates application skills and using it to support their risk assessment. 1 mark awarded for stating the implication of the risk on the financial statement. ठीक है. Identification of what is material, why it is material, amount, and then correlate that with the financials. अब कंक्लूजन वाले पार्ट में देखो 2 मार्क्स और मिल रहे हैं. रीड द कंक्लूजन. See what 36, 37 give you credit for. 1 mark awarded for analysis evaluation. Candidate has demonstrated the prioritization of risk and provided a reasoned justification for their choice. Risk evaluation is effectively prioritized, focusing on significance and only taking account of risk which would result in material misstatement. 1 mark for skepticism. Candidate is challenging the information and focusing on areas where there may be additional risk. They have focused on areas of subjectivity and estimation. So the auditor is saying कि यार तुमने जो clearly identifiable risk बताए थे वो तो है ही, but over and above that there are these issues also. Fair enough. So what are your key takeaways if you want to gain marks in the first part? Some basic points to be considered: correct format, heading, headings throughout, ठीक है, opening paragraph which describes whatever it is. Then materiality, stating the basis, stating the threshold, calculating the threshold, providing a justification. ठीक है. Each individual point, heading, amount, description of the risk. ठीक है. Stating why it is material. उस पे भी मार्क मिल रहा है ना थ्रू आउट. स्टेटिंग वाई इट इज मटीरियल. ठीक है. देन एक्सप्लेन द करेक्ट अकाउंटिंग ट्रीटमेंट, उसका मार्क. कोरिलेशन विथ फैक्ट्स ऑफ द केस एंड अंडरस्टेटमेंट ओवरस्टेटमेंट. उसके ऊपर भी इफ देयर इज एनीथिंग देन यू शुड राइट दैट, बट बेयर मिनिमम इतना तो करो. इन ऑल द risk of material misstatement or audit risk, you should write about this part. Keep on referring to materiality throughout, give the right kind of headings, ठीक है, and then give a concluding paragraph. Concluding paragraph में you do mention that how do you get marks for skepticism and all of that. Do mention कि और भी exposure है, और भी issue है, जो भी है, do mention about that. Make sense? ठीक है. अब आप क्या करो? Now you read principle of, yes Trisha.
सर द कंक्लूजन पैराग्राफ हमको हर सब पार्ट के उसमें लिखना है ना, ब्रीफिंग नोट्स के, कि
Yes, yes.
पूरा ब्रीफिंग नोट्स खत्म होके कंक्लूजन देना है?
Ideally right after each subpart, because you know there are these finer nuances which you might not be able to put together in one go. What I mean by that is key. Here, you wanted to stress upon the fact that areas which involve management judgment or estimation, those would open up the situation to greater level of risk. Correct? So, if that is the case, then वो फिर आप एंड में सब कुछ एक साथ कैसे समराइज करोगे ना, और इसके लिए आपको अलग से मार्क्स मिल रहा है. ठीक है. ओके. नाउ डू वन थिंग. हाँ, प्रोसीजर्स में कोई कंक्लूजन नहीं हो सकता. आई होप यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट. ठीक है. एक बार रीड बी एंड सी. आई विल बी बैक इन अ मोमेंट. आप बी एंड सी पढ़ो तब तक. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 points with respect to procedure. 38. 1 mark awarded for communication. All of the procedures in this section are identified and explained why they are carried out. 1 mark awarded, well explained point identifying the procedure and explaining what the auditor is looking to verify. So, just writing down the procedure is not important, or rather, that is not fetching you the marks. Marks आपको कहाँ से आ रहा है? You are getting your marks from the, ये कहाँ चला गया मेरा? See, you are getting your marks from the explanation of why this particular procedure is important. तो आधा मार्क आपको मतलब whatever is the number of allocated marks, half of those marks you are getting because you described the procedure. The remaining half of the marks you are getting because you explained why you are carrying out the procedure. ठीक है. So inspect a copy of reports which management uses to perform analysis to confirm what are the main segments recognized. Calculate the percentage of revenue of each segment of total revenue of the group to confirm if each segment brings at least 10% of the revenue to the group. Calculate the percentage of external revenue to do this. So everywhere, just writing do this, do that, do this, do that is only fetching you half of the allocated marks. You will get full credit when you explain कि ये step करने से perform physical verification of inventory to do what, perform physical verification of this to do what, mentioning that part is important. ठीक है. So procedures में what and the why both you have to write, and matters to be considered in deciding whether Pegasus and Co should accept the engagement. ठीक है. 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. ठीक है. 1 mark for identification, 1 mark for identification ethical risk. Half mark awarded as ethical risks are identified but not explained. 1 mark awarded, the candidate has recognized that there are limitations to what non assurance services may be provided and explained that it is unlikely that due to such regulations the engagement cannot be accepted. 47, ये देखो, the group is a listed entity, so the extent of non audit services we can do is strictly limited. I have serious doubts if that is job that could be accepted. So what they are saying is vague statement है. So this conversational style of writing answers will not be appreciated in the paper. ठीक है. Conclusion is fetching you because they have given you marks everywhere. अब ये जो लिखा है, in my view we should not accept this engagement, politely decline. Politely decline मत लिखना, जरा ज्यादा हो जाता है वो. ठीक है. इसको कितना मिला? 50 में से 40.5. हाउ कुड दिस आंसर हैव बीन इम्प्रूव्ड? देखो तो.
Done, sir.
ठीक है. सो do we know a little better in terms of how to frame the answers and how to get marks as compared to, did you have this clear guidance in any other paper from ACCA? इतना क्लियर SBR में तो हम देखते भी नहीं है, AFM में भी नहीं देखते हैं, बट यहाँ पे हाउ यू आर प्रेजेंटिंग द आंसर मेक्स ऑल द डिफरेंस. ठीक है. अब आपने गुड आंसर तो देख लिया, अब एक बेकार स्टूडेंट का आंसर भी देख लो. ठीक है. ऐसे लगता है इधर सब इसके दुश्मन बने हैं. बहुत गड़बड़ लगता है ये आदमी मुझे। देखो तो एक बार, रीड दिस आंसर, जस्ट रीड, देन वील डिस्कस द implications, क्यों मार्क मिला, क्यों कटा, ऑल ऑफ दैट। वेट, अरे यार वो शीट बार बार गायब हो जाती है, रुको। अब see how the marks were lost. 2 marks for communication. Candidate has followed the instructions by basing materiality on PBT. 0 marks awarded for communication, no use of briefing notes format or structure, although there are headings throughout. There is little use of an introduction, no standard format. 0 marks awarded for analysis and evaluation. For risk calculation, prioritization, detailing not done. 1 mark awarded for correct ratio and calculation of upper and lower range. The candidate has obtained 1 mark for stating the calculated materiality. There is no justification of choice and no range. ठीक है? Then candidate has not, see, not stating that the item is material मीन्स पर्सन इज नॉट गेटिंग मार्क्स। आपको आइटम बताना है, फिर उसका क्वांटम बताना है, क्वांटम बताने के बाद स्टेट दैट इट इज मटेरियल, देन गिव द करेक्ट अकाउंटिंग ट्रीटमेंट, देन टॉक अबाउट अंडर स्टेटमेंट, ओवर स्टेटमेंट। सो ये फुल एक्टिविटी आपको करना पड़ेगा टू गेट मार्क्स। नाउ when we are now when we frame answers in the future, अभी हार्ट कंपनी हमने पूरा, we did it just with respect to content. ये पेगासस कंपनी में we tried to understand कि what a good answer looks like. In the next question that we do, which will be on Friday, we will now frame the full answer, मतलब materiality level लिख के, हेडिंग वेडिंग देके एक आंसर एकदम आइडियल तरीके से we'll construct। ठीक है? Are you getting a little clarity on how the AAA answers, specifically section A, have to be handled? B का तो चलो हमने देख लिया, plus B is not, इतना फसी रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है, बट स्टेटमेंट सो सेक्शन ए वाला जो है, दैट रिक्वायरमेंट इज अ लिटिल फसी। ठीक है। सो दिस लिंक दैट आई हैव शेयर्ड विथ यू, जस्ट गो थ्रू इट वंस ऑन योर ओन ऑल्सो, यू विल गेट सम मोर क्लैरिटी। ठीक है। फ्राइडे को वी विल बी डूइंग द सेकंड क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम द किट। ये फर्स्ट था, वी विल बी डूइंग द सेकंड क्वेश्चन ऑन फ्राइडे। ठीक है। चलो, थैंक यू सो मच। यस हर्षा।
I was doing one question of section B today, and उसमें going concern का part था where they haven't really disclosed the matters regarding the going concern, and उसमें implications पूछा था where the exam kit answer mentioned कि if appropriate disclosures है तो आप ऐसा करो, if नहीं है तो आप ऐसा करो, but we know कि डिस्क्लोजर्स अगर नहीं दिए हैं रिगार्डिंग गोइंग कंसर्न तो वी हैव टू एक्सप्रेस एन लाइक एन ऑडिटर विल एक्सप्रेस एन एडवर्स ओपिनियन, राइट? सो हम लोग यही लिखेंगे ना, और डू वी हैव टू राइट इफ अप्रोप्रिएट लग रहा है ऑडिटर को तो वो ये ओपिनियन डिस्क्लोज करे, अगर नहीं लग रहा है तो ये, बट इफ डू वी हैव टू राइट, और हम एक ही पॉइंट लेके बोल दें?
शो मी द क्वेश्चन ना, एक बार मैं देख के बताता हूँ आपको, ऐसे बताने।
Yeah, it's Dali question. I will send you the question also on WhatsApp. So that's where I got lost कि कैसे करना है।
एक बार दिखा दो, आई विल चेक एंड लेट यू नो।
जी,
ठीक है।
यस, थैंक
वेलकम। चलो बाय।